Good morning, traders. It is Monday, July 23rd. We've got quite a bit going on in the market this morning. Some pretty big price action, some new highs, some new lows popping on different investments. So let's just kind of jump right into it. Here we've got the US dollar index. It's the 4-hour chart. And on Friday, we ended up closing. We had a nice strong move up. We closed right over here. Last night and this morning, we're seeing the US dollar index continue to push up. It's testing this previous pivot high here right after forming a nice Fibonacci retracement. I pointed out last week, if we just draw a Fibonacci retracement right here, you can see we had a nice pullback, more or less to the 38% or the 50% here. Just came right down into those two levels, found support, dipped down to a 50% retracement, and then Friday we saw a nice move to the upside, which triggered a pretty strong sell-off in stocks and commodities. This morning, last night, we're seeing now this previous high being tested, and it did pierce it this morning. It'll most likely probably flag here for another hour or two, and then we'll probably see it continue to move to the upside. Now, if we look at the big picture and we zoom out to the weekly chart, you can see the big pattern here that we've seen unfold for a while. We're testing this previous pivot high right here, and we've gone up. We had a nice strong week there a couple weeks back. We've been trading sideways now for 2 weeks, consolidating, trying to eat through this resistance level, and this morning we're coming up, testing, making new highs. And if we do see this expand, we're going to see probably a big candle, several big candles to the upside, and probably see crude oil, or sorry, the US dollar reach right up into this upper resistance zone. Of course, this run here we've been looking for and waiting for a while. It should trigger a big move down in stocks and commodities. Again, we're trying to get positioned for that. And this morning's move up in the US dollar is triggering some pretty strong selling across the board for stocks and commodities, which I'll cover just in a moment here. Taking a look at crude oil, you can see how it's pulling back. Yesterday I pointed out how it was overdone on the upside. We had a nice strong move to the upside, started to pick up speed and go parabolic. On an intraday basis, we saw it really kind of pick up speed and go straight up. That happened on light to no volume. Pointed we'll probably see a pullback somewhere to the 90 level, and we ended up getting a pullback on Friday, a nice about 2% drop or so on Friday. Again, not holding through the weekend. Holding through the weekend, it would have gone much lower. It's down over 3% alone today, coming down all the way to 88.50, somewhere down there. Overall, it's a little bit done to the downside, and if you just look where it has come down to test, we're right down into a support zone, which is where it's touched. Buyers have stepped back in, and we may see crude oil here flag for a little while. Depending what happens with the US dollar, it could end up continuing to pull back much sharply, much more if the US dollar continues to move strongly to the upside. But overall, the kind of high probability little pullback here has been done, and the main support level has been tagged, and now we're starting to get a bounce. Looking at natural gas had a good run on Friday, started to push up, make some new highs. Just zooming back to the daily chart, let's just get a bigger picture here. You can see we're trading up at new highs this morning. Had some pretty strong volume on that little bit of a breakout there. And the natural gas really does buck the trend of the overall market, and what the US dollar is doing. It's kind of its own little thing, and it's holding up nicely today. Overall, it continues to move up. Now it does have a possible 3 surges to a new high here, which you want to be careful. I do feel as though it still could pull back. Overall, 3 surges to a high is something I follow pretty frequently. You get these 1, 2, you get 3 pushes to a new high, and then from there you can see a very strong correction in the market, and this pattern happens over and over again in pretty much all investments. Overall, this breakout to the upside did happen with some fairly strong volume. It's been trading sideways the last candle, and of course that sideways volume has been nice and light, or lighter than the upper candles, so it's still bullish price action right now. And overall, natural gas is still looking pretty strong. I feel as though it needs more of a pullback, but overall it is holding up above support and starting to extend away from that this base level here that is broken out of. Looking at precious metals, gold and silver are down. Gold's down about 0.7%. Silver's down about 1.5%. You can see here we've last trading session we've kind of dropped down, picked up speed, and now we're down into a little bit of a support zone. I wouldn't be surprised if we see gold and silver actually have a little bit of a bounce later today, or pretty much I think most of their selling is done for the session. I feel as though they're going to have a little bit of bounce or pause. They're all both trading down at support. Here's the silver chart. You can see silver's trading down at support also. It's kind of just picked up speed. It's already starting to bounce here just in the last 10 minutes. Overall, it's gold and silver at pretty major support zones, and overall the trend is still down for them in the last year more or less, but I do feel as though they're at a support level. If they do break down, I don't think they're. I think silver will probably come back down. It could test this 26, so it could drop another dollar from here. Overall, I think silver has more downside than gold. I think gold is still going to have some money flow into it during uncertainty, and when the market sells off, people are going to try and move there as the safe haven. Looking at bonds, bonds have pushed to a new high this morning. You can see the nice strong run Friday, last night, and this morning. Really moved up to new highs. We've broken this previous high, and usually what happens when you see a strong move like this and a big pop, now we're starting to see a little bit of a topping candle. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a pullback and trade into this previous little cluster top here and consolidate for possibly a day or two. Overall, I think the market is a little bit overdone to the downside, meaning that everybody's just piled out of stocks and piled into bonds, and now I think we're about to see a little bit of a bounce in equities and probably a pullback in bonds. Looking at the SP 500 futures, this is the intraday chart, a 30-minute chart. You can just see where we stand in this recent bounce. Just to kind of recap where we were, we ended up taking a short position right up here. Once we saw first sign of weakness, we shorted the first pullback within a downtrend, caught this nice move to the downside, ended up reversing, got some bullish news, and the equities market kind of ripped to the upside. Now Friday we saw prices gap down and sell off right about here. All we were waiting for, there was a gap in price from where the equities market actually opened. I think it opened right here, so we had a gap window in this area. We were hoping for a bounce, hopefully today or this week, to come up, fill that window, and we were going to take a short position for a possible nice move to the downside, or maybe a multi-week move to the downside. Anyways, this morning futures, they gap lower. They've continued to extend to the downside. This move here is starting to look a little long in the teeth. It's been an extended move to the downside. We are coming into a pretty key support zone just right across here. You can see we've got consolidation, multiple support levels, became resistance over here, a breakout, a couple pivot lows where prices have bounced off, and that's where we're trading now. And the fact that we've fallen, the market's pulled back about 2% since Friday already, which is a nice move. I think we're probably going to see some type of bounce today or a consolidation. I don't think it'll be much. I think it could be fairly muted, very similar to what you see back here. You get an extended move to the downside and it consolidates for a bit. You might get a little bit of a pop to try and shake everybody out before it continues to go lower. Now looking at the daily chart of the SP 500, you can see today's price action. Friday we had a big red down candle. Today we got a big red down candle, down another percent. Going to be a big gap to the downside this morning. We are trading at a key support level, the 20-day moving average. We're also trading at a support zone here, support trend line. The thing to notice here, we noticed on Friday our short-term, our momentum blue-green line here came into an oversold condition, and we have every other cycle else topping out, so it's showing that there is a multi cycles pulling back, so we could see a very strong move to the downside. This morning's move down is getting us the short-term cycle is now into the oversold territory, and usually this will take about 2 to 3 days to really kind of start to bottom out, meaning we could see another session or two to the downside. But generally when these two bottom out down here, usually the market is ready for a little bit of a bounce. And what you get there is usually when you see these two trading down here, you'll actually see just this little bounce. You get a little bit of bounce on the chart, just back up here, and then you see it continue to go lower to make the bottom. very similar here. You see the first move down, and then you'll end up getting a little bit of a bounce. Then you'll get your final wave down. So that's kind of where we stand right now. I think we might see a little bit of a bounce or pause here, and then we could see this really break down and pick up speed to the downside. As this purple line here, this intermediate line, rolls over, it technically has quite a bit of time to come to the downside. It usually takes anywhere 4 to 6 weeks to really kind of work its way down. Within it, it may have the odd bump. If we do get a bounce in the market here this morning or in the next day or so, we'll see this purple line have a minor little bit of a bump, but overall it's in an overbought territory. And usually when it comes up here, you'll see it's about a 4 to 6 week rise and then a 4 to 6 weeks decline. And as this purple line is coming down, we want to be shorting every time we see the yellow and green cycles topping out, because they're just intermediate bounces within a downtrend. And that's exactly what we saw over here and what we started to see over here as the pink line started to top out. So anyways, that's kind of where we stand this morning. We're waiting for an entry point. Unfortunately, we missed this first initial drop. Now we're looking for some type of pause, consolidation, before possibly a major meltdown as the long-term and intermediate cycles start to work their way lower. And if we break down below this bear flag, then we'll probably see a pretty big move down. Anyways, that's it for now, and I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.